Hello, Alejandra. I see that you've arrived as well. Oh, there's Louisa. Great.
Hello, everyone.
So for anyone who missed it, we're going to try to do this with our cameras on so that we can communicate a little bit more freely. If you can't, you sort of disappear from the screen. So that's fine. If you need to step away, no problem. But if you have anything to say, just hold up your hand and let me know, and I'll be keeping an eye out. And Louisa, are you around to kick us off?
Can you not see me?
I don't
Oh.
see you.
How about now?
I don't think our camera's
Oh,
on.
there you are.
There I am.
Terrific.
Sorry about that. So welcome everyone. My name is Luisa Oliveira and I'm the Director of Public Space and Urban Forestry. Nice to meet any of you I have not met yet, although I think I've met many of you. You may know that this pollinator action plan comes from years of advocacy around pollinators and a native species ordinance that we passed, I think in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, 2021. And really that ordinance sets out different percentages that are required for native planting in Somerville. And what's come out of that ordinance is that we recognize that we need to do a more nuanced and science-based plan that's really trying to match the pollinators that are in the urban environment with the nourishment for them and encouraging other ones. So we really want to take this pollinator action plan, which is the first of its kind. There are a couple of other ones that we'll go through, but none of them in such an urban context, and make something that is a model really for the region about how we are planting plants that are actually supporting pollination and wildlife in general. We had over 50 people apply to the committee, and so congratulations to you. It was difficult to pick only 10, 11 folks because there were so many people, but we really tried to find a balance of people in different wards in the city, people of different socioeconomic and racial diversity, which you can see we didn't have that much of, and also people who have networks outside of the normal networks that can really try to share this information with more people, because we are going to need a buy-in from the general public and from private property owners so that we can really maximize what this plan does. So again, thank you for being here. There are a lot of other people that we wanted to put on the committee, and there are a lot of other people that are going to be able to participate as alternates. And Allison will talk a little bit more about what both alternate and public participation looks like. But there are also a number of folks from city staff, and that was important because we really wanted to make sure that what we were doing was represented not only in the people who are designing public open spaces and taking care of them, but also with the DPW, and which is the taking care part. And so we have the tree warden, Breck Miller, who's in the DPW, and then we have Courtney Kirk, who's a public space planner, and Vanessa Bukili, who's the urban forestry planner, all joining us so that we can be very cognizant of both what we are aspiring to and what the back end of that and the realities of managing a municipal system look like. We also have some rules of engagement that we've come up with that we ask for everyone to follow, and those are really very simple. We're all learning here. You know, we all have different expertise in different things, but we are going to learn from each other. We're going to learn from the consultant team that is eventually hired. So we're really coming to this as, you know, open-eyed as possible and as curious as possible. We want to be respectful to each other in this committee and to city staff, and assume the best intentions. People, everybody on this committee believes in this plan, or we wouldn't be on this committee. So we just want to when others speak, assume that they are having the best intentions in trying to move this forward. We would like all members to be able to speak without anybody debating or any kind of reaction or response. That's a little bit easier on GoTo because you can control any kind of reactions or snark, but we just want everyone also to feel very comfortable expressing their own opinions. And then we'd like you to keep track of this idea of step up, step back, meaning sometimes you're going to speak and then step back and give other people an opportunity to speak. So just knowing how often you're speaking, or if you're speaking a large portion of the meeting, and then, you know, being able to kind of have self-awareness so that we all are able to listen to each other in a pretty equitable way. We would like you to contribute and be present. Obviously, we have 1 hour. We have a lot to do. We might have to make our meetings a little bit longer, but we'd like to try to stay on point and not go into the other direction. We had put together the charter, which is pretty clearly outlines what we're trying to do here to move this project forward. So we want to try to stay on that. And then we also want to be really, really aware of the fact that there's a lot of people in the city who might have a viewpoint on this, or might have even a contribution or a viewpoint that's different than our own. And for many different reasons, they're not here or not able to be represented. So we need to be super aware of the fact that while we're trying to represent as many people as possible, we're also a group of pretty homogenous people, and that there are a lot of other voices that are not being heard. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Allison, who has spent a lot of time preparing lots of stuff for us and for this committee. I will be coming to the meetings just to hear. I'm not participating or on the committee in any way or voting in any way. So I'm going to hand it over to Allison. We're in great hands. We're really thrilled to have her, and we're really thrilled to have you guys. Thank you so much for giving your time for this.
Thanks, Louisa. Yeah, so I'm Allison Maurer. I'm a planner of ecological restoration for the city. I was hired partly with this project in mind. So I'm actually only, I think, just under 2 months into the job at this point, and excited to be sort of jumping in at this point in the project stream so that I get to see this really get off the ground, to be with you all in that. And I'm your city point person, so if you have questions, if you have logistical things that are coming up, please feel free to be in contact with me. If you want to have a, I don't know, some substantial conversation about milkweed, we can do that too. I'm excited about all of those things. My background is in landscape architecture, and I also have a degree in ecological design and planning. My way background is in the art world, so and then I have a love of food systems as well mixed in there. So I've got a lot going on, but I'm excited to be in a very urban place thinking about these questions in particular. I think that the idea of how you support pollinators in such a densely populated city is really fascinating, and I think that we've got a lot of fun work ahead of us, and I'm really excited to be a part of it. I think we can just go around and do some introductions if that's okay. It's a little hard getting to know each other, I know, in a virtual room, but I hope that we can do something to that effect. I asked you all about why you were on the committee. Some of those answers are up here on the slide, but I think if we can just go around and say who we are, your pronouns, relevant background that might be informing the way that you contribute to this committee, and then what makes you excited to participate. And maybe I'll just sort of popcorn it around, and we can start with Amy.
Hi, I'm Amy Myrtle. I am officially here as a representative of the Urban Forestry Committee. I'm a member of that committee, so that's how I ended up on this committee, as representing that group. But I'm also particularly interested in this because I study urban insects as part of my academic work. I'm a professor at Lesley University, and I have a lot of citizen sciences-based projects looking at urban insects. So I've done one, it's actually mentioned here, the pollinators at Somerville project. So when you were mentioning kind of looking at the pollinators that we have already, I was thinking, oh, I should like maybe present some of that data to this group about some what the pollinators that we found in that project. But that's I'm interested in general in figuring out how to take urban spaces and promote insect abundance in those areas in the most effective way. So I'm excited to contribute to the committee. Thank you.
All right, let's toss it over to Lisa. Yeah, there's a little mic icon. If you click it and it turns green, that means your mic should be working.
I was clicking the really tiny icon. I'm Lisa Bruclacchio. I use the she series pronouns, and I am on this committee as one of the nonprofit organizations, and that would be the Somerville Community Growing Center, and where we've been over the past 5-6 years as part of a renovation, really working to demonstrate how native plantings can be connected to pollinators in a larger ecosystem approach to urban growing and enjoyment as well for some of the human critters. And but I'm also part of some like statewide groups looking at similar issues. So just very excited to be part of a group of different perspectives and information and trying to figure out how does this work in a very urban, because there are plans, but they're very kind of like Franklin County and places that are not urban. So there's just such possibilities. So I'm excited about that. It's important work.
Thanks, Lisa. Renee?
I'm Renee Scott. I'm here as a community member, although I also am part of Green Open Somerville, which is a community group that's been working for, almost 10 years now on trying to improve and increase our green spaces, and more recently focusing on ecological restoration. And we helped write the native planting ordinance. And so I'm really excited to come from that angle of community participation, and also be get really creative about how we can use the few natural spaces we do have to welcome pollinators back, and hopefully educate our fellow residents that this is really, really important. I also am just actually starting working with the Massachusetts Pollinator Network, so I don't know if there's any overlapping help with that, but if there is, then I'm happy to take advantage of that and use that hat as well.
Amazing. Courtney, do you want to go?
Hi, I'm Courtney Kirk, Senior Planner in the Public Space and Urban Forestry Division. I am a registered landscape architect in the state of Massachusetts. I use pronouns she, her. That's like, sorry, I forgot about that. I've been with the city for almost 5 years. I'm a Somerville resident of Ward 3. I volunteer at the Growing Center. I have, in my professional career before coming to the city, I have worked on a number of projects that range in scale from things like the Muddy River restoration to coastal projects in Boston Harbor, and very tiny projects like parklets. So I hope I can assist with technical things, or I'm really excited to push the needle in terms of pollinators. Thanks.
Jack.
Yeah, thank you. I'm Jack Pernick. I live in Ward 5, and I come to this line of work having been a beekeeper for many years in Western Massachusetts and ultimately moving to Somerville and wanting to stay involved with that. In my kind of first outreach into policy, I was working with Rep. Dykema from Holliston on her bill for pollinator protection, and having stayed involved in local communities, watching the native pollinator ordinance pass in 2021, felt it was very important to have a strong execution on that plan, and glad to be here.
Excellent. Breck.
Yeah, hey everybody. My name is Breck Miller, he, him pronouns. I am the tree warden for the city of Somerville. So I handle a lot of the tree maintenance side of things. I'm in the grounds division of DPW. And I'm a staff appointee, but really interested to sort of see where this goes, because we've been talking about it pretty much since I started about a year and a few months ago. My background is in forestry and forest ecology. Been in urban forestry for a while now, but looking forward to helping out any way that I can.
Alejandra.
Hi, everyone. I'm here as, I use she, her pronouns. I'm here as a general member, but I work for Mystic River Watershed Association. And I come from a little bit of an academic background of ecology, having studied native pollinators, more within the agricultural landscape, but having also done some research within urban spaces, and sort of maintaining pollinator biodiversity. So really excited to explore that at our local scale, and just excited to bring any expertise, but also put heads together and address it more at the citywide scale. So really excited to be here. Thank you.
Thanks. Cynthia.
Hello. I was having some technical issues. I'm glad that got resolved so I can come back. I am here representing the Somerville Gardening Club, and I'm looking forward to Amy's introduction because her work with pollinators is my most direct connection to the topic. Taking photos of pollinators in my neighborhood has taught me a ton about the connection between what we put in our yards and what happens with them. I am head of the garden club. I am by far the least experienced there, but it's a really friendly group of folks in Somerville, and it's how I sort of got my head around being connected to community in this big city. So I'm really looking forward to working with you all. I think this is a really fascinating project, and I love it. And I love the rules of engagement and the charter and everything about it. So, hey, everyone, nice to meet you.
Great. Kat, I'm going to have you hold off on your intro just for a minute. Kat is going to be presenting today. She was our fellow last summer, so just hang on one second. We also have a couple folks who are alternates. So the alternates, we are hoping, will join us and participate in discussions just as much as the rest of us. The only distinction is that they are non-voting members, but we would love for them to be as involved as they can be in case one of the committee members is unable to continue. Then we have someone who can so easily step in, and throughout the rest of the time they can bring their expertise and passion to the mix too. We just had so many good applications that we just want as many people involved as we can. Claire, I know you're here. Are you able to just quickly introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm trying to find my webcam. I guess it's not working, but that's okay.
There's a little camera button. If you click it, it'll turn green, and that'll turn it on. There's a mic button, then the camera button is right below it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, hi. Great. Excellent. And hi, Judy.
Hi. So I'm Claire, and I'm going to act as an alternate and come as much as I can. Actually, I know a few people in the in the group here, such as Lisa, Amy, and Renee, and actually even Courtney as well. So I'm the president of Earthwise Aware. So we do a lot of things in actually in terms of insect survey and citizen science in the area. So we do a good number of surveys that are focused on occurrence, abundance, activity of insect. And we have a few sites, such as one as a growing center. So I'd be very happy, to, of course, to join. Our angle is about biodiversity and climate. And I'll be very happy to join and help you when you want to have some of my skills there. And I look forward to learning from all of you as well. Right. That's it.
And Judy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Judy Shotland, and I come to this group with great enthusiasm and that's very much a sense of how important what we're going to be doing is. And my background, I have an academic background, though, in biology rather than anything ecological, but I have a lot of gardening experience and a passion for learning about gardening and growing things. And I was involved in, I've got a place in Western Massachusetts as well as my home in Somerville. And I was very involved with a group out in Western Massachusetts that had some state support for developing a pollinator corridor, and worked with them for the Heath, Massachusetts contribution to that. And I've got a pollinator meadow out there, which has been great fun. And then I have now in my little postage stamp size front yard a pollinator garden that's beautiful flowers that are just absolutely, alive with bees and butterflies and all kinds of insects. And that's kind of hiding my little vegetable garden that's 8 by 8 feet. So I have some experience. I have a lot of drive and energy, and I'm happy to contribute wherever I can and to learn as much as I can. Thank you.
Thanks. And Vanessa. I didn't mean to forget.
Hi, everyone. Vanessa Bukili, Senior Urban Forestry and Landscape Planner, here as a staff member, but also wouldn't want to be on here anyways. I have a PhD in plant ecology, looking at succession in tropical rainforests. So ecosystems and ecosystem services are top of my passion list. I've been with the city for 6 years, sort of initially spearheading the urban forestry program to be what it is today, now with three full-time staff members. So really looking forward to figuring out more about the pollinators we have in the city, which sounds like a lot of you already have a lot of good base knowledge for that, and how we can make our plantings even better for those pollinators. So thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Okay, I don't think I missed anybody now. I think we got everyone. Okay, I'm going to move through this pretty quickly, but I just wanted to give just a quick overview of the committee's tasks. So for part 1, which we're in right now, our goal is to kind of review what's out there already. Kat's going to introduce us to that today. That was the bulk of her research last year. So we're going to familiarize ourselves with the context that this plan will be entering into, and then we'll be generating this request for proposal in order to hire a consultant to create this plan. Once we've got that out, we'll be reviewing those proposals, interviewing if needed, participating in public events to make sure that we're educating the public as much as possible about what we're up to, how they can stay involved, and then eventually making a recommendation to the mayor. Part 1 is going to be 2 times a month. So you've seen this already, but just to give you a sense, pretty straightforward until we hit the June 19th holiday, and then it'll shift back a week. So just be aware of that little shift getting us past the holidays. Our hope is to have this RFP, the request for proposals, out in July so that we've have these few weeks to get up to that point. And then tentative dates for the second part, where we'd be meeting 1 time a month. after a bit of when we put out the RFP, we'll need a bit of time to get those responses. So keep these dates in your calendar. We can adjust as a committee if need be, but I wanted to get that schedule out there sooner rather than later. Just to give you a sense of the public's involvement. So this is something we can talk about and kind of hone together as well. I've set up and am running this Summer Voice page, which is the platform the city uses for projects to keep the public up to date on things, for important links, for polls, surveys, that sort of thing. So it has my information on there, which I'm now realizing should be a different email address. They can also subscribe to this. So they can, I'll be sending out little updates when there's a meeting that they can attend. The link to this meeting is up, but I don't think I put it up kind of last minute and there wasn't really much publicity about this or anything, thinking this was mostly just be an introduction for us. But it'll also be where all of the videos will reside, in addition to documents from our meetings. So our meeting agendas, slides, the precedent projects, I sent this link to you, those all live there as well. So you can go to this page for yourselves as a resource if you lose a document, if you're looking for something. And if there are any ways that we want to use this to engage the public, we can figure that out together as well. We've also talked about hosting sort of a more intentional public forum setting where we're updating the public on the work that we've been doing. I'm imagining that June 26th might be a good time for this before we put out this RFP, after we've had some time to kind of try to get ourselves on the same page. We've been working on this draft, all of that, but this is something we can decide together. I've also been thinking about setting aside some meetings. This could be every meeting if we decide, or maybe it's just some meetings where we have, an open session for the public to comment at the start or the end of the meeting. I have also thought about I've created this little public comment sheet that because our meetings are short, if anyone from the public attended and they really wanted to say something, that they could fill out this form and we would update the committee at the next meeting of all of those comments received. And this is something I would love to talk to you all a little bit more about, figure out what might be the best way to do things. I wanted to introduce this as sort of what we're thinking about, a larger forum, public opportunities just at the start or end of the meeting for people to chat with us, this Google form option, and that maybe we can come back to this at the end and just touch base about how we think we might want to move forward. Kat has to leave at 5 on the dot, so I want to make sure that we get to her presentation soon. So let's loop back around to this later. But we're thinking about ways of getting the public involved. Part of why you're all here is because you have networks into the community and you can be connecting with folks and getting them excited and thinking about ways that the community might want to be involved in this, the way that they might be involved after the plan is complete as well. So just keep this in mind and we'll come back to it. Any questions or comments at this point about the sort of logistical part? Yeah, okay. I know you all have seen the charter and so you've had time to mull over those things. I am going to, I just made this small and now I don't know how to make it bigger. All right, we're going to move over to Kat's presentation now. Can everyone see her presentation?
And I just minimized something. There we go.
Yeah, can see it. It's good.
Great, thanks.
All right. So hi, everyone. My name is Kat, she, her pronouns. Who am I? I am currently a graduate student in landscape architecture at the Harvard Graduate School of Design. And I was brought on this past summer as a fellow to work with PSF and really look at some of the precedent pollinator action plans that are out there. My background prior to landscape architecture is in terrestrial community ecology. And a lot of the work that I want to do going forward in landscape architecture is distinctly ecological in nature. So this plan is really interesting to me, and I think a huge opportunity for a city that I have come to love so very much to do something kind of groundbreaking. So this is not going to be a comprehensive overview. There were actually quite a lot of precedents out there, although we'll talk about the different categories in a moment. But I have made a folder with all of them as PDFs available to Allison, who can then make them available to you, which it sounds like you're going to go through as a group. So yeah, Allison, if you could pop to the next slide. Okay, so as I was going through the different precedents, you expect that the problem might be something ecological in nature, but ultimately it's a lot more sort of prosaic than that. The issues that we're dealing with when it comes down to pollinator habitat in our urban context have to do a lot with policy decisions that have been made, and therefore certain policy changes are required. It's one of the reasons why it's so exciting that this is a city initiative rather than, for instance, a nonprofit that's going forward with the work. Although the collaboration with nonprofits is really important, you need that policy heft to be able to overcome these issues. Then there are issues of how we're sort of accustomed to living. There are certain expectations that are culturally informed about what is clean and good and safe, and so there's a necessity to sort of identify these norms as a part of the process, and then figure out how to upend them where necessary. And so education is a huge part of the work that you all will be doing and that the plan will be doing. And so really centering that as a major charge for this group, I think will be valuable going forward. And then one of the other issues that I saw occur again and again in these plans had to do with the question of scale. But you can rely on individuals to take up the charge, but like I was saying before, the municipality also needs to provide guidance and really lead the effort as a demonstration of commitment to the work of protecting urban pollinators. So the work that happens in this plan ideally will extend from something as small as the residential yard or the road median all the way to questions around how Somerville relates to the state, for instance, and what kind of policy decisions are being made there. So next slide, please. Allison, I think you've missed a slide. Are you sharing from online or?
Yeah, I am sharing from online.
Where's slide 3? Yes, if you could just update it, and there you go.
Oh,
awesome.
good. It was not updated. There we go.
Yeah, just a couple of updated slides.
Sorry about that. Okay.
No worries.
Take 2.
So the summary there is that this is first and foremost a social issue. The health of pollinators is less about, whether or not they're doing the right things and more about whether we are doing the right things. We don't need to manage ecosystems. We need to manage our own behavior and our own systems to make fruitful cohabitation possible. So that felt like a really important starting place for us. Next slide. So as I was going through the different plans, of which there are many, a few types emerged. You have action plans on the scale of a city or a town, some of which are municipal and some of which are nonprofit. A nonprofit example would be I think the one in Portland, Maine, whereas municipal would be something like what we are doing now. And those are often more available in European contexts rather than in US precedents. Then there are educational campaigns, again, undertaken by nonprofits, but not so much a plan for a whole city as more a plan of public education. Then there are a series of regional action plans, some of which are state by state and some of which are more for bioregions or multiple states at a time, which again run into the issues of scale, that when you're looking at the issue of pollinators from that lens, it's hard to have place-specific interventions. And then finally, national or even international action plans. So the EU, for instance, has a large initiative. But that then is reflected in a series of country by country and even city by city plans. Next slide, please. So there are a ton of different models. Please go through them at your leisure. You'll talk about them. Here's a short list of the ones that feel perhaps most relevant to the work you're doing. So I might say look at them first, but then there are plenty of others. Some that are in Massachusetts already, like the Great Barrington and Lincoln plans, one in Maine, then some others, you know, in Seattle, which is sort of operating at the same scale, but it's more of a public education campaign. Some things from the state. Tufts, who is a collaborator on this project, I know, has their own sort of educational materials. So all of these are good to go over, but if you'll go to the next slide, there are a few that stood out as ones to talk about in this context just because they relate to our particular bioregion. And so the Great Barrington and the Lincoln plans are, so the Great Barrington plan was produced by a group of graduate students at the Conway School. The Lincoln plan was produced by one of those graduates who went on to found a sort of ecological landscape company. And then the Portland plant was also produced by the Conway School. So they operate in this space where they all came into being in a similar way, but they're all directly relevant to the bioregion that we are in. And then there's the Tufts Pollinator Initiative educational campaigns and other small city plans that I would encourage you to look at, but most of them are in Europe, so it's a very, very different context. Next. So throughout those examples and the various other ones that are maybe further afield, there are a few common threads. One is a really robust, or the strongest ones have a robust regional analysis that looks at existing conditions. You need to understand what's going on already in order to move forward. It sounds like a lot of you are doing incredible work in this space, and so that work and other work factors into the starting point. There are other cities that would be starting way behind where Somerville is going to be starting, and conversely, cities that might be starting ahead of us if they were doing this process. Then many of these plans break down into category sort of opportunity areas. So thinking about what are the types of spaces and community and amenities where the plan can intervene. So that might be something obvious like parks or cemeteries, but then there might be things like ongoing residential developments or municipal buildings or urban agriculture. Many of these plans attempt to operate at different scales, but a lot of them tend to talk about what you can do at home. That's sort of how it's generally phrased, is like, what can the individual do? And so the trick is to provide that, to give people a sense of action moving forward without forgetting that there is a conversation about what can the city do uniquely as a municipal entity that individuals alone cannot do. And then public engagement is often mentioned, but it's something that I'll come back to because I think for this to be successful, it needs to be core to the work going forward. So it often appears in these plans, but it's not nearly central enough. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a quick overview of some of the points that I pulled from these. Again, you're going to go through them, so I'm not going to even attempt to be exhaustive. But three of the things that the Great Barrington Plan does well is that it really focuses on building a network. So it's not just a sort of series of one-off projects. It's thinking about how do they relate to each other? How do they learn from each other? How are they connected, both conceptually and practically? How do pollinators move between those spaces, but also how do people understand that those spaces are linked? The plan also does a good job of thinking about some of the sort of pragmatics, like what are the existing conditions, what are the planting requirements, but then also what are the maintenance requirements? Maintenance is a huge part of this, because if we build these incredible spaces for pollinators, but people don't love and take care of them, then the project doesn't work. So maintenance is a huge part of the Great Barrington approach, and I think personally, I think it should be part of your approach as well. It takes a toolkit approach, so a bunch of different options that can be, deployed in multiple ways. So for instance, a type might be a road median, and that appears in many different contexts, but there are certain common threads as to how you can address it. So figuring out what are sample interventions in different conditions and how can they be replicated in a fairly straightforward way. And then as a part of that, trying to break down things that are really complex, like making a meadow feels like a big undertaking, but as you start to break down the steps, it becomes legible both to the public and to the people who are implementing the project. And then the third part is managing concerns. I mean, the reality is we're probably here because we mostly like pollinators and we think they're a good thing. There are a lot of people who, I mean, if you mention bees, they have an immediate and generally a sort of culturally informed reaction of, so breaking that down, figuring out, you know, what are the fears around undesirable insects that aren't necessarily related to the project, but people might fear would be, you know, how do we talk about invasive plants? And then how do we make sure that people know that these spaces are being cared for? There's a conversation around cues to care, which are ways that you can design a project to make sure that people know that it is being cared for, even if it looks a little unkempt and wild. So it's to help people become more comfortable with a space that's a little less manicured than perhaps a lawn surrounded by a hedge. Next slide, please. So the Lincoln Plan, again, just a couple of things that I pulled out of that that I think are well done. One is this plan in particular is very blunt about the stakes. It says we are entirely dependent on the health of insect ecosystems and communities, and specifically pollinators. So being that blunt, I think, is not a bad thing. The trick is to pair it with a sense of possibility and sort of actionability, that it's not just, here's this horrible thing, panic about it, but here's a real problem, and we are uniquely situated to solve it as a municipality and a community. And then this plan has an extensive period of analysis, which I think, you know, since we have the force of the city at our backs, we should lean into that, you know, really do a thorough analysis, engage with academics, engaging with urban planners to have a sort of robustness that unfortunately some of the smaller plans often lack. And then again, this plan focuses on correcting misconceptions or even anticipating misconceptions in order to ensure they don't become a problem. And then the next is, this plan does a very good job of doing a robust scientific translation. So helping people understand it's not just about the number of bees you see. It's about, you know, who's out there, specifically what species, talking about diversity as opposed to just abundance, thinking about specialist species as opposed to just, you know, any old honeybee. So a couple of items that this plan does well. Next. And then very quickly, this is the Portland one, which is a bit smaller, but the two things I want to pull out are this forming social connections, which is really thinking about the sort of ecological, social imaginary, if you will, the way in which people understand their relationship to the natural world, as opposed to just make a design plan, implement a design plan with consent of community. It is really about helping people turn this into an ethos for the city. And then the next page here is just a way that they had structured their recommendations, again, by type, but there's some things that might not seem so obvious here, like they included a local prison. That is a place, you know, despite the desire on the part of some to close prisons, that is a place that exists now and a place that's a possibility for intervention. So really thinking outside the box as to where one can actually intervene. All right, next slide, please. I'll try and speed it up a little. So the success of a project like this is totally dependent on public buy-in. That's the reality, and it's something that a lot of the plans seem to lack. However, there is a huge opportunity, just demonstrated by the presence of you all here, for citizen science and for youth education to really make this a part of Somerville culture. And part of that is going to be constructing a really compelling narrative to members of the community. This is not just about how can we make sure there are bees and butterflies in our backyards. This is about how can humans thrive in the city? And then how do we tie human and non-human flourishing together? How do we make it apparent that those things are interdependent? And so part of this is to find connections with larger projects that other people might already be invested in across the city. So how do you tie pollination health to housing, to transit, to schools and public space? So to help people understand this isn't just a one-off side project, but really relates to everything that they care about in terms of the health of their city. And then something mentioned in conversations that I had this summer, including with Luis Roldan, who's the Somerville Strategic Planning and Equity Manager, is just the importance of listening and figuring out where can community members and local organizations actually take the lead? Where can some of the power be ceded to them so that that buy-in is permanent and embedded? Next slide. And so that all brings us to this issue of equity and justice. I mean, again, it has to be central and not just an afterthought. It's a powerful way to ensure that implementation and longevity are really, present in this project. So one of the things that one can do is start in places that have been historically put last. Not only, that doesn't just emphasize justice, it actually sort of catches the community attention, because when they're usually not put first and then they are, it draws attention, it builds buy-in. The other, another step is to find out who's already doing this work. Who are the people that are surprising potential allies who are working in environmental justice, civic beautification, youth education, food sovereignty, maybe unexpected bedfellows. And then again, in conversations that I had during research this summer, the use of small scale pilots can actually be a method of outreach to get the process going before a plan is written and finished. It can be a way to test out different ideas, to ground truth them before officially including them in the final version of the plan. But that can also be a method for getting people excited and on board with the project as a whole. So reaching out to community organizations and doing these little pilots as a way to make people aware that this is something that's happening. And then the last is, which is sort of implied by some of the plans, is the very sensitive use of scientific language. I mean, I come from an ecology background, so I love my fancy scientific jargon, but it can also be a huge barrier, and it can be language that distances or excludes people. And so one of the challenges is to find a way to be both scientifically robust, but also really publicly accessible. Next, please. So I guess the overall charge at this point is to learn from others, but do it better, because there are plans out there. But as Louisa implied, this plan is a bit unique in the sense that it has the full force of the city behind it, and it's operating in an incredibly dense and diverse municipality. So and this is just a partial list again, but the goal is to be informed by previous work, but to do something that's really kind of exceptional. As I implied earlier, there's often a gap between local nonprofit work and more regional plans. So figuring out what is the city uniquely capable of doing given the scale that we're operating at. And then, as addressed in many of the plans, often the conversation is about the wrong pollinators and people have the wrong information. What are the pollinators that we're actually focused on? I mean, yes, honeybees are, they do pollinate and they are an important part of the system, but we have to start with the most vulnerable, both people and non-humans. And so that often includes like specialist bees, for instance. And then a better and evolving pitch to building enduring public commitment. That pitch is going to change every time you talk to somebody new. And then this is maybe a sort of a personal plug, but the power of scale to change industries. If a city, an entire city, is making a change on this scale, that is going to affect what plants people are buying from nurseries. That is going to affect how landscaping practices happen. Talk to those industries as a part of the plan, and the plan will be stronger. All right, next slide. And so there's some doing the same, but doing it better. There's also a bit of inventing that's going to have to happen, which again is mentioned in many of the plans. There are going to be new policies. You have to identify the policies that are current barriers, but then also the policies that can incentivize the creation of this habitat, a sort of carrot method. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this question of what is the best way to build a sort of a pollination culture where the priority becomes a part of civic identity, where Somerville really thinks of itself as a pollination city rather than just a city that happens to have a pollinator action plan. And then this is it's only a brief mention, but I think it's a rich place for conversation, which is what are improved methods for ongoing monitoring and research. Monitoring is critical to the success of this work, but often is not included in plans. And so that can be a real opportunity to do something novel. Next slide, please. The last thing that I'll mention before concluding is, again, this idea of, I'm a landscape designer who came from ecology. I'm moving across different worlds, disciplinarily speaking, and I encourage you all to do the same. As I mentioned, speak with the plant nurseries, speak with the arborists, with the landscape, maintainers, but also with community leaders and citizen scientists. And then final slide. And then these are three of my ideas about why this work is important. I'll share this PowerPoint with you all and you can read through, but I think the next step is to really come up with what the why is for you, and how that informs how you talk to each other and the community going forward about what the pitch is for this work, because it is valuable. We all know that. Thank you so much. And I have a few minutes for questions, and you can always reach out to me after.
Thanks, Kat. It's amazing. I'm just going to stop sharing for a minute and let's just take a second. If anyone has any questions, any thoughts, now's a chance for discussion. Vanessa?
Well, I just thought that was very inspiring. Like, we can make a difference. Let's go, people. Go pollinators. Thanks for all that you've done, Kat, to
Yeah, of course.
get all the information in one place and show us a good way to get started.
Judy?
I think I particularly appreciated some aspects. You know, I think of the plants and the maintenance and the insects and other pollinators, but I hadn't really thought so much about the importance of this the whole social aspect. And so that was very eye-opening for me, and I really appreciated learning about that. So thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Cynthia?
Yeah, that was really great. Thanks for that. Allison, are you going to have some of those PDFs available for us to look through?
Yeah. I think everything that happens here will be put on that Summer Voice page.
Super.
So all of the slide decks that, we create for this, that people present to us, with their permission, we'll put up there. So that link was in your email. I'll put it in the chat as well. But yes, we can get that out to everyone. I'm also going to send you an email this week with like more stuff and some recap from today and all of that. So
Fantastic. It always strikes me how thoughtful the interfaces. I don't even have the right words for this, but the city really thinks about how to make information available and to listen to residents, and I appreciate that. And Jackie, what other people have said, I'm really looking forward to taking up the charge of reaching the people in the city with what we're trying to do.
The thing that stuck out to me most was you mentioning the idea of emphasizing the groups that are normally not emphasized, both in terms of bees and in terms of people. I've definitely seen the power of that in both situations. So I like the idea of adding that aspect to the plan.
yeah, okay. Maybe that's it for today. Kat, we can let you go then.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. I'm really excited to see what you get up to in these next 2 months. So yeah.
Thanks, Kat. Anytime you want to join us while you're finishing school, probably not, but when you're done, maybe you want to join us, feel free to come back in.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'll follow up, Allison, and share the slide deck. I should hop off now because I have to go, but take care, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. We have another committee member came in, and I'm hoping they can put on their camera. Anna, I don't actually know how you pronounce your name. Are you there?
It's pronounced Anna,
Anna, hi.
but I don't really mind. Hi.
Hi. Anna is one of the youth representatives for the committee. Anna, we did intros in the beginning, so if you just want to, like, if you're able to turn on your camera, great. If you just want to say your name, pronouns, a little bit of your relevant background and why you're excited to be here, that would be great.
Sorry, my dog is barking. My name is Anna Mateo. I was a part of the Somerville Youth Climate Crew from the past summer. And what I did basically was maintain different plants and remove invasives, which was a huge part of the group. And my pronouns are she. I'm so sorry about my dog.
Don't worry about it. That's perfect. Thank you for joining us. Okay, so I think, we'll wrap up for today. I do think there is a little bit of a question of like, is an hour going to be enough for us? We said it would be an hour, but are we going to be able to get everything done that we want to? Let's keep it at that for now, but we can think about that and discuss that later. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 24th. My hope is that this is a chance for us to dig into these plans that Kat's introduced a bit more. Some of the specific ones that she's called out that are relevant for us to look at, I think we should be sort of prioritizing among the big group. I put her long list, almost all of them, in the folder on the Summer Voice page, but I will send you an email that'll call out the specific ones that we can maybe target as priorities. They're generally pretty long. The Portland one is short, but so like don't read it word for word. But if we can just sort of dig into these a bit, and we'll do a little sort of activity the next one to try to pull out some of the things that we're understanding, observing, thoughts we have about them, just as a way to kind of get us going for meeting 2. And I'll send you notes for today. Please do feel free to spread the word about this. Anyone's, can attend and listen in on the meetings. If they're interested, or if they just want to watch a video later, they're all welcome to. We do really want to get the word out there about this, so feel free to spread the word. And then maybe just for the sake of time, I will ask folks via email what they think about sort of engaging with the public within our meetings, and we can either talk about that at the beginning of the next session. For now, there is always on the Summer Voice page a place where people can put in comments and questions. So there's that. The meeting links will be public and available for folks if they do want to attend. The meeting schedule is already online. So that's all there, and we can just talk about if there are any additional ways we want to engage the public in these meetings at the next meeting. Anything else? Oh, also contact me via the spap@somervillema.gov email. You've all got my contact information. You've been in contact with me in the past, but I'm available. Any other questions coming up at this point? Thoughts? We all good? Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. I'm thrilled to be getting this started. It's so nice to be with you in a, virtual room, but still a room. And it's really nice to meet you all after a bit of emailing. So thanks for your enthusiasm, and we're thrilled to have you with us. Okay, I think we can stop the recording.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allison.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Have a great
Bye.
day.
Have a good one.
See you in a couple weeks.
Bye.